In this episode, Jack and Mark speculate on the ancient history of advertising. The Greeks, they had sales.
Who invented warranties? Go to a store nowadays and they say, would you like to buy product protection for $20?
That was Peterus.
Papaya, wasn't it?
Yeah, Peterus Papaya. It's good you're here because I can't remember all these names.
PP they called it.
It was called the PP warranty. Buy this mule cart, you get a PP warranty with it. Unfortunately, it wasn't a very good warranty because when someone came back with a cart that they bought from him and the wheel fell off, say, or the axle failed, and they'd say, well, I want my warranty. And he said, yeah, but did you put bear grease on the axle? And they didn't have bears there. They said, what the hell's a bear? Well, if you didn't do that, then the warranty was void.
The Greeks invented exclusion clauses.
Yeah, so, it was, of course, people got pretty annoyed. PP, he got thrown into a volcano.
He never made it out, Or did he make it out?
I think they sold him one of his grappling hooks, and they said, here's the warranty on it. We're going to throw you down in the volcano with one of your grappling hooks. And he said, wait a minute, but there's no rope with this. And they said, oh, really?
They're the ones that came up with accessories. What were some of the products that, didn't come with the accessories, but the accessories were pretty important?
Yes, well, there was the chariot that didn't come first.
And the advertisements were a chariot with a horse being pulled, and they'd have a guy with big muscles, and you think, wow, if I buy this chariot, I'll have big muscles too. And then you buy it, and it's just basically a few pieces of wood.
Yeah, and then if you read the exclusion clause, it said that you have to pull the chariot yourself. You could only see the product on display from 500 yards.
So I can get a closer look at that product. And he would say, well, you have to buy it first. After all, it's not yours yet.
By the time you get there, it'll be ready to go.
Those Greeks, right? Didn't they come up with a cure for hiccups?
They'd say, listen, give me 5,000 shekels and I'll cure your hiccups. And of course, the guy's desperate. He's been having hiccups for 4 days. They'd put him in a barge with a bunch of avocados and set him adrift. And they swore that would help.
The barge would go out to sea and it would come back 3 weeks later and the hiccups would be gone.
He survived by eating avocados.
Hiccups, usually they go away on their own.
And also, when he was way out at sea, a shark would come and it terrified him, and then he lost the hiccups. So it was kind of like not really a ripoff because it did do the job. Some people never found their way back to shore, and then there would be complaints. Well, you sent my husband out there with hiccups, and now he's gone. And then he would just say, well, does he still have hiccups?
That was one way to get rid of hiccups in those days, was just to kill the guy. Go to the doctor, you'd say, hey, look, I have hiccups. Can you get rid of them for me? And the doctor would just kill you.
Yeah, that was the budget version.
Right.
That you had to sign an exclusion clause for that before you signed up.
What was the clause?
It says, if you can't pay, I'm going to kill you. I had to go in there with some shekels. I mean, you got to be careful in those days. There's no complaints department.
I mean, it was the Egyptians who invented the complaints department.
They did. They had the big complaints pyramid. And it was a long tunnel. And then at the end of the tunnel, there was a big pit.
You'd go in and you would fall in the pit, right?
You never come back. That was the complaints department. People just stopped complaining.
What was the very first civilization to engage in advertising?
The Neanderthals used to advertise.
Weren't the Neanderthals the first one to come up with 50% off sales?
You'd come and they'd say, it's 50% off. We get both halves. And then the Homo sapien get really pissed off. And so they would call in their mathematician. He was a guy who carried around a big bag of rocks. And then they'd say, okay, we'll show you how it works mathematically.
Well, that was one of the beauty of carrying around those bags of rocks.
I know. Everyone knew the Neanderthal mathematician was a really good shot. I mean, even if you tried to run away, it'd still bean you. A big Neanderthal forearm could just toss a rock like a shot put.
Well, that was Bernie, right?
Oh, yeah, Bernie Hogstein.
Bernie Hogstein.
Dealing with Neanderthals was pretty tough. Usually you always left with nothing. They always had some sort of logic that entailed buy 7 and we'll let you live.
Who was it that came up with the concept? You go into a store, they'll have something which is really cheap in for that reason, and they actually lose money on that. That's the lost part, but it brings you into the store. That's what a lost leader is. What isn't that, the Cro-Magnon?
Oh, the Cro-Magnon's a branch of humanity. They'd open up a shop and say, we got really cheap mammoth tails. And mammoth tails were a popular ornament, and so then you get all these Homo sapiens and Neanderthals coming in at the same time. Now you've got like about 10 Neanderthals and 16 Homo sapiens, and there's not enough mammoth tails.
So then you got to go kill a few mammoths. They go in, they buy the mammoth tail, and then they come out. And now you got all this stinking mammoth meat lying around. That's why they went extinct.
Well, you got to understand that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens, when you get them together, it's basically they start fighting over two mammoth tails that you got, and you want them to buy all the meat, and then they turn on the Cro-Magnons because they blame them for the whole mishap. And that's how the Cro-Magnons went extinct, because they were bad salesmen.
The Neanderthals and Homo sapiens killed them?
Well, they started having a brawl, and as soon as they started throwing things, the Neanderthals are pissed off at the Homo sapiens, and they can't find anything to throw. Well, they grabbed the first thing on hand, and the first thing on hand was just a Cro-Magnon person.
What about loyalty clubs? Wasn't that Peking Man?
He'd sell dried bog peat moss for fires. Come get the peat moss from me, and then I'll tattoo your arm. Once you've got 6 little squares of peat moss on your arm, you get a free square of peat moss.
The little squares of peat moss would wear off. So people would go like 6 times, and then some of the marks would wear out, and then they were down to 4, and then they got mad.
That was a danger of his business, and they find these guys in the bog nowadays.
Very deep in the bog.
I think, well, how did he end up? It's because people got pissed off. Had come 6 times, and then they didn't get their free square of peat moss. It was very dangerous being in sales in those days because there was no governing body.
Yeah, there was no regulatory.
No regulations.
We have concluded our broadcast schedule for today. Good night.